Hind, Anurag. Okay, let's see. I have a lot to tell you today, so we'll go quick. Yesterday we stopped having talked till the import liberalization part. What we do today, we start talking on, did you write the second part? Shifting to floating exchange rate? Yeah. So just understand that story. We are talking about external sector liberalization, and we were in the second point, that was shifting from fixed exchange rate to floating exchange rate between March 92 to March 94. All right, this is one thing that you had written. What we need to know is that in March 92, the fixed exchange rate by India that we were practicing was 12 rupees to a dollar. That was the fixed exchange rate in March 1992. And then we changed it and we introduced, this was March 1992, and now we introduced a system called liberalized exchange rate management system. We called it LERMS, Liberalized Exchange Rate Management System. Under LERMS, what we were doing, we made 40% of currency convertible at the market exchange rate and 60% of currency convertible at fixed exchange rate, which was the beginning of current account convertibility. Remember, whenever you see the word convertibility, it means how you are converting one currency into another. Whenever you see the word convertibility, it means how are you converting one currency into another. So when you use the term current account convertibility, it is about how you are converting foreign exchange into rupee. All right, that is convertibility. And then when you see terms like current account convertibility simply means that you are saying that whatever inflow of currency takes place on current account, for example, inflow through exports of goods and services, inflow through remittances, inflow through factor income from abroad, how will that inflow be converted from fixed into floating? That is current account convertibility. How will that inflow be converted from fixed into floating? That is the current account convertibility. So India started that, okay, we created a liberalized exchange rate management system. Under we said that 60% of all inflow on current account will be converted at fixed exchange rate and 40% of all inflow on current account will be converted at market exchange rate. 60% of all inflow on current account will be converted at fixed exchange rate and 40% will be converted at market exchange rate. So you know the story goes like this then, that if you are bringing $100 into India, then $60 will be converted into rupee by paying 12 rupees per dollar, and $40 will be converted into rupee by paying 30 rupees per dollar, which was market exchange rate, and fixed exchange rate for 12 rupees a dollar. So this became kind of the formula. ऑलराइट, कि अगर आप भारत में $100 ला रहे हो तो $60 के लिए आपको फिक्स्ड एक्सचेंज रेट मिलेगा और $40 के लिए आपको मार्केट एक्सचेंज रेट मिलेगा. दैट बिकेम द फॉर्मूला ऑफ कन्वर्टिंग रूपी फ्रॉम डॉलर, ऑफ कन्वर्टिंग करेंसी फ्रॉम डॉलर इनटू रूपी. Now, what we did, so that was the 60% and 40% inflow on current account. This was done because government did not want to take the risk that if we directly shift from fixed exchange rate 12 rupees a dollar, and the market exchange rate in those days was around 30 rupees a dollar. So the government was worried that if we make a shift from 12 rupees a dollar to 30 rupees a dollar, there will be BOP fluctuations. The imports will become suddenly very costly. The exports will become suddenly very cheap. The value effect of J curve will tend to dominate the volume effect, and that might destabilize the economy. That was the thinking. That जो आपके J curve का value effect है, वो volume effect को dominate करने लगेगा और आपकी economy destabilize हो जाएगी. That was the thought process. So that is why it was thought that, it was said that, in fact, politically, the Prime Minister was not at all in the favor of shifting, to the extent that he had even instructed the Finance Minister that it's your call, and if things don't work out, you will be at loss. So, but then the Finance Minister was quite convinced that this works, and due to that, it meant that it was saying that we went for this method. So what they were doing, I repeat again, what they were doing was they were using a transition period. That, okay, let's begin like this, and then let us see how things go. All right, let's begin like this, and then let us see how things go. For 2 years, it went like this. After 2 years, or within 2 years, it was realized that the fluctuations are not as much as what was expected. In fact, India was stabilizing pretty well. So, in March 1994, there was full convertibility declared on current. March 1994, there was full convertibility declared on current account. That is, any money you bring into India on current account, and you will be given full value at market exchange rate. Full convertibility means any money you bring into India on current account, and you will be getting complete value at market exchange rate. All right, that is the idea. Avinash, ठीक नहीं हुआ है. So that was full. हाँ, फिक्स एक्सचेंज रेट आरबीआई डिसाइड करता था. एक बार यहाँ शिफ्ट कर गए तो आरबीआई का कोई रोल नहीं, वो फिर मैनेज फ्लोटिंग हो गया कि आरबीआई का रोल स्पेक्यूलेशन कर्व करना होगा. हाँ, हवाला मार्केट कर्व होता है बिकॉज फिक्स एक्सचेंज रेट में हवाला ट्रांजैक्शंस होते थे ज्यादा. ठीक है. सो दैट इज द इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट टू कीप इन माइंड. I'm just making you write few things. You write in that. And as I told you, LERMS was introduced as a transition period thing. So you write LERMS was introduced. LERMS was introduced वॉइस ऑडिबल तो है ना संदीप? ठीक है, तो क्लास करते हैं हम, फिर धीरे धीरे वो ठीक हो जाए. पीपल ऑनलाइन, इफ यू आर एक्सपीरियंसिंग डिफिकल्टी इन द साउंड बॉक्स और ऑडियो सिस्टम, it is being rectified, but I'm sure I'm audible to you to the extent that you can listen to me. Already I got delayed, unfortunately, to the class, and I have a hell lot to cover with you, so I'm not stopping the class. I'm sure you can, coordinate for some time. So let's see this. You write in this factor, you write LERMS was introduced as a transition method under exchange rate system of India because of two important reasons. A, fear of extreme fluctuations, fear of extreme fluctuations on BOP, because India had not opened up its capital account entirely, which meant that any change in exchange rate which resulted in making imports costlier and exports cheaper, making imports costlier and exports cheaper will put the pressure of borrowing back on the economy. Now, I'll tell you why I say that. We had opened up slightly, but we didn't allow for very easy inflow of FDI. We did not allow for very easy inflow of FII. In fact, FIIs were hardly allowed in India. FDI was allowed in India to some extent, but FII was hardly allowed in India. So that was the challenge that we were facing. All right, that we were not having inflows here, and that was the challenge that we were facing. That meant, now imagine, if imports become costly and exports become cheap, the current account goes into deficit, and we didn't have a method how to get back without borrowing. Government was worried about that. Also, we had liberalized and we had started the reforms, but obviously we knew that our industries are not that efficient that immediately as we reform we will start getting exports. So we knew that we are vulnerable, and that was the reason government didn't want to take a chance. And second reason, you write, two, it was understood that there will be large depreciation of rupee, which was politically not acceptable in Indian context. Politically not acceptable in Indian context. I hope you understand this point, that everybody knew that if we shift to floating exchange rate, then from 12 rupees a dollar we go down to 30 rupees a dollar, and people won't take it nicely. People will react to it, because India has always been susceptible about depreciation of currency. These things became challenges in those days. You write below that, however, Lerms showed, however, Lerms showed that fluctuations can be controlled by managing expectations, which was achieved by continuous liberalization, which was achieved by continuous liberalization and continuous globalization. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Lerms was showing that if you can manage the expectations, if you can tell people, look, I'm continuously liberalizing, I'm continuously globalizing, then people won't expect the currency to depreciate as much and the speculative attack won't happen. That was the fear, that if currency immediately depreciates, there will be speculative attack on the currency. Now, with Lerms, right policy making, giving right signals, you could balance it by letting the economy know that we are consistent, we are not going to go back on what we had planned, and therefore you can remain easy, and you will see that gradually the currency does better. You understand that? So that is why we didn't have a currency attack. And when we did not have this currency attack for 2 full years, then we decided let's shift to managed floating exchange rate on current account. All right, let's shift to managed floating exchange rate on current account. The whole talk on capital account convertibility I'll be doing with you after a while, but that was about current account convertibility. So if somebody asks you, is India convertible on current account? The answer is yes, 100%. Whatever money you bring on current account will be convertible into dollars immediately. You write, next paragraph, ओवरऑल, और एजुकेटेड क्लास उसका पार्ट होता है, क्योंकि हम एजुकेशन सभी को इकोनॉमिक्स की नहीं है ना. ये हमारी भूल है सोचना कि इकोनॉमी बेस नहीं रहा इलेक्शन का, वरना वाजपेयी जी तो हारते ही नहीं 2004. लालू जी कभी बिहार में ना हारे, उनके पास तो मस्त कॉम्बिनेशन है. वो बोलते भी हैं माई कॉम्बिनेशन, मुस्लिम यादव वोट फॉर मी. He says that openly, he said that, still lost Bihar because he didn't give economy to people. कभी मत सोचो कि इकोनॉमी इंडिया में एक इशू नहीं है. इकोनॉमी इंडिया में वोकल इशू नहीं होता. 2009 में मनमोहन सिंह जी कैसे जीत गए? वो मनमोहन सिंह जी जीते थे, सोनिया गांधी जी नहीं जीती थी. अनफॉर्चुनेटली मनमोहन सिंह जी ने भी रियलाइज नहीं किया कि वो जीते. 2004 से लेकर 9 तक इकोनॉमी बूम कर रही थी, तो कांग्रेस पार्टी को 154 की जगह 205 सीट्स मिले. अगर तुम्हारी इकोनॉमी बूम करेगी, तुम बाकी कोई कहानी सुनाओ लोगों को, लोग वोट दे देंगे तुम्हें. अगर तुम्हारी इकोनॉमी नहीं अच्छी कर रही है, लोग भले ही तुम्हारे साथ बोलते हैं हाँ सही बात है, ये जरूरी है, वो जरूरी है, पर इंटरनली फील कर रहे हैं नौकरी है नहीं मेरे पास, चीजें महंगी हैं, खाने को ठीक से नहीं मिल रहा, नहीं करेंगे वोट तुम्हारे लिए. तो ये कभी मत सोचना दैट इकोनॉमी इज नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट व्हेन इट कम्स टू टेकिंग डिसीजंस. इनफैक्ट अगर मुझसे पूछो, मे बी मैं इकोनॉमिक्स सब्जेक्ट का हूं तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है, पर मैं तो मानता हूं कि हमारे लाइफ के 90% डिसीजन इकोनॉमी डिसाइड कर देती है. 90%. फादर ज्यादा रिस्पेक्टेड इन द फैमिली क्यों? आप सोच के देखिए, फाइनली धमकी वहीं जाती है ना. जब वो हार्ड ऑन बात आ जाती है, मेरे पास इस चीज के लिए पैसे नहीं है, बात खत्म. इकोनॉमी कंट्रोल एक जगह पर है. ग्रेजुअली 65-70 इयर्स के होते होते फादर जो है वो वीक क्यों हो जाते हैं? अब इकोनॉमी उनके हाथ में नहीं है, रिटायर हो गए, पेंशन आ रहे हैं, उनको पता है हेल्थ केयर किसी को करना है, मेरा ताकत उतनी नहीं बची, तो देखना मदर्स डोमिनेंट हो जाती हैं. दादी माँ लोगों को देखोगे, दादाजी खाना भी पूछ के खाते हैं, ये खा लूं. तो अगर तुम गौर से देखोगे, इट्स अ लॉट ऑफ इकोनॉमी दैट यू वुड सी अराउंड योरसेल्फ. इंडिया की एक ट्रेनिंग है, और ये ट्रेनिंग है हमारी, हम मटेरियलिस्टिकली ट्रेंड नहीं है, तो हम बहुत सारी बातें मॉनेटरी टर्म्स में बोलते नहीं हैं, जता देते हैं. वी शो हु इज द बॉस, वी डोंट नेसेसरली से इट. ये हमारा कल्चर है. मैं ये कोई नेगेटिवली नहीं बोल रहा हूँ. आई एम नॉट सेइंग इट विद एनी वैल्यू जजमेंट. ये कल्चर है, ये तरीका है. बट फाइनली इकोनॉमी का अपना एक इम्पैक्ट होता है कि तुम कैसे करते हो. तो इसीलिए जैसे ही तुम्हारी करेंसी, तुम सोचो एक बात, करेंसी डेप्रिसिएशन का मतलब ये नहीं होता कि लोग समझ रहे हैं डेप्रिशिएट. लोग नहीं समझ रहे हैं डेप्रिसिएशन, इसीलिए वो नेगेटिव हो जाता है. अगर लोग इकोनॉमी समझ रहे होते, अगर ये कहोगे कि इंडिया में लोग इकोनॉमी नहीं समझते, ये मैं मानता हूं. लेकिन अगर ये कहोगे कि इकोनॉमी देख के वोट नहीं, वो सेंटिमेंट्स, परसेप्शन, व्हाई इज द गवर्नमेंट गोइंग स्लो ऑन डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट. इलेक्शन के 2 साल पहले से वो परसेप्शन नहीं बनाना चाहते थे, लेकिन छिप के मोनेटाइजेशन हो रहा है. तो पॉलिटिक्स इज अबाउट परसेप्शन मैनेजमेंट. ये हमेशा दिमाग में रखोगे सब कोई. एंड परसेप्शंस आर मैनेज्ड बाय यूजिंग द इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम. सो दैट इज हाउ इट गोज. ये परसेप्शन मैनेजमेंट का गेम होता है. अगर आपकी करेंसी ज्यादा डेप्रिशिएट करेगी, पार्लियामेंट में लोग सवाल उठाएंगे, हंगामा मचेगा रोड पर, जिसका रियल इंपैक्ट आपको पॉलिटिक्स में देखने को मिल जाएगा. दिक्कत ये होती है. उस हिसाब से सोचो तो शेयर मार्केट में कितने ही लोग हैं. ये सोचते रहना अपने दिमाग में. डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट, मैं कल भी तुम्हें कह रहा था, आई हैव नेवर बीन एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई अपार्ट फ्रॉम द whole idea with which we have grown up, there is no reason why we should object at disinvestment, because we don't even use those public sector goods. लोग MTNL यूज नहीं कर रहे, लोग MTNL में काम नहीं कर रहे, लेकिन बोलो MTNL बेच दूंगा, खड़े हो जाएंगे गुस्से में. ये कैसी बात कर रहे हो? तो तुम्हें क्या लेना देना है? तुम ना उसमें काम करते हो और ना उसके यूज करते हो. लोगों के प्रोटेक्शन के लिए है, तो तुम्हें क्यों नहीं कर रहा? तुम क्यों जियो लेके घूम रहे हो भाई? हम ऐसे सोचते नहीं. ये परसेप्शन है. यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? तो ये हम बोलते नहीं, पब्लिक सेक्टर इज फॉर सिक्योरिटी. हुज एंड वेयर इज इट बीइंग यूज्ड? तो ये बात सब, और आज तुम्हें पब्लिक सेक्टर ही पढ़ाने वाला हूं, तो इसीलिए ये बातें बिल्डअप भी कर रहा हूं. दैट हमेशा दिमाग में रखोगे दैट व्हेन समबडी सेज अबाउट इकोनॉमी नॉट प्लेइंग अ रोल इन इंडिया और इंडियन वोटिंग, इट हैज अ ह्यूज अंडरकरेंट ऑफ रोल in Indian voting mechanism. Yes, there is no obverse and there is no vocal role it plays in the sense of real economy, but undercurrents are huge in any system. अभी मैंने तुम्हें लालू जी का एग्जाम्पल दिया या अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी का एग्जाम्पल दिया. ये दो ऐसे लोग थे जो अदरवाइज बड़े पॉपुलर लोग हैं, जो इनके पार्टी के खिलाफ वोट करते थे. उनमें से भी बहुत लोग कहते थे कि नहीं, ये नेता तो अच्छे हैं, लेकिन तो ये बात कह रहा हूं, तो हारते ही नहीं कभी वैसे तो इलेक्शन. ऑल राइट, देन you take this up further. You write within that there were two important advantages of introducing full convertibility on current account, full convertibility on current account, you write A, it resulted in depreciation of currency. It resulted in depreciation of currency, due to which Indian commodities got protection against foreign imports. Think like this: if the average import duty is 150%, then a $10 commodity will be priced at $15, sorry $25, $10 plus $15 tax. यही import duty थी हमारे यहाँ 1992 में. So a $10 commodity plus $15 tax, $25 becomes the price in India into 12 rupees per dollar. You with me on this? So the price in India will be 300 rupees. On the other hand, if the same commodity now by 1994, import duty average had been reduced to 30%, so the $10 commodity plus 30% import duty will mean $13 price in India. यहाँ तक की स्टोरी अगर देखें $25 and $13, तो देखने में क्या लगता है? Indian goods left unprotected. But now multiply this $13 price with 30 rupees per dollar. And that makes the foreign commodities get priced at 390 rupees. And that means their price in India increased in this whole scenario rather than reducing. And that is what people trained in a subject do. They achieve the goal in the right manner. They don't achieve it by being blunt. IMF wanted us to liberalize imports. We said, we do it. And IMF wanted us to shift to market system. We said, we do it. And we knew that when we do both, then we can liberalize our imports, which will mean we'll make our raw materials or we'll make our other consumer goods relatively cheaper. But we didn't want our producers to be immediately hungover. So what do? We let the currency depreciate. So you let the currency depreciate and the protection is maintained. Unfortunately, when people not trained are in business, they keep increasing import duty unnecessarily by 5%, 10% and resist heavily not letting the currency depreciate. I call it bordering on foolishness. You know, completely foolish नहीं बोलूँगा, थोड़ा scope है यहाँ गुंजाइश है, लेकिन border line पे है, मूर्खता है. मैं 10% import बढ़ाऊँगा, import duty, particular commodity को select करूँगा, headache लूँ वो, और उन commodities में by chance बात नहीं बनी, तो फिर किसी और commodity को select करूँगा. इससे अच्छा मैं 10% अपनी currency को depreciate कर जाने दूँ, मेरे exports भी बढ़ जाएंगे और मेरे dead weight losses भी नहीं होंगे. बट डेड वेट लॉस तो मैं तब समझूंगा जब मैंने फर्स्ट ईयर इकोनॉमिक्स ऑनर्स की किताब पढ़ी हो या यूपीएससी में ऑप्शनल पढ़ा हो. नहीं तो मुझे पता ही नहीं कि इस दुनिया में डेड वेट लॉस नाम की कोई चीज है, मुझे पता ही नहीं इफेक्टिव रेट ऑफ प्रोटेक्शन नाम की कोई चीज है. मैं अपना टैक्स लगा के सोच रहा हूं मैंने अपने कंपनी को प्रोटेक्ट कर दिया. पीरियड. दैट इज द डिफरेंस आई वांटेड यू टू अंडरस्टैंड, दैट व्हेन पीपल नो देयर जॉब, व्हेन दे हैव डन देयर सब्जेक्ट, दे नो हाउ टू प्रोटेक्ट and how to legitimately do things. We started missing on that. Try understanding this, that we didn't. Today also we do these errors at times, that we feel, oh, increase the import duty and you protect the firm. Well, you increase the import duty and the others will retaliate. But if you let your currency depreciate just to match the real exchange rate, you don't have to let it depreciate a lot. Just let it match the real exchange rate. Your inflation differential will be taken care of. And that will mean that your commodities remain relatively more competitive without any clutch and straw here and there. तो ये समझना हमारा जरूरी था. Thankfully, again I'll repeat, in those days people making policies, most of them were PhD in economics and they could understand the subject better. So they were taking these actions. And thankfully in those days they were free to take actions. I'll tell you why I say that. Dr. Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister in 2004, but he was not free to take actions. The remote control was elsewhere. So in that case, he would not be taking, the economic decisions we made were not what he would have made. So that is why our manufacturing did not pick up. The government papers would show them because there he would have his imprint. अगर आप 2004 से लेकर 2012-13 तक का इकोनॉमिक सर्वे पढ़ें, तो वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सर्वेज हैं. और उसी बीच के बजट को देखें, तो सर्वे की बात मानते ही नहीं थे बजट. So that was an interesting situation. You know, that survey is suggesting do this and the budget would do something else. And it kind of continued till 2018, till Professor Arvind Subramanian was the chief economic advisor. Survey would advise about how to do things. There would be a volume 1, but the budget won't do much of it. 2019-20 onwards, the advisors have changed. Now the survey doesn't advise, the survey defends. अब सर्वे डिफेंड करता है कि नहीं ये काम हुए हैं सरकार के और ये सब इसलिए हुए हैं. क्या और होना चाहिए, क्या और करना चाहिए, उस पर एक आधा पैराग्राफ होता है बस. और वो भी पैराग्राफ जानबूझ के मुझे लगता है सेकंड लास्ट पेज पे डालते हैं या लास्ट पेज पे डालते हैं believing कि इसको पढ़ने नहीं आएंगे लोग. It's done with subtlety now. That the paragraphs about what should be done further is on the second last page or last page of the chapter. So that is how Indian story has changed. I just wanted you to acknowledge that. Now, what does it do further? So you write in the same thing, second point. It resulted in encouraging foreign investments, as purchasing investments became cheaper in India. It resulted in encouraging foreign investments as purchasing investments became cheaper in India. Now, देखो फिर मैं बोलूँगा यही ऑप्शनल और जीएस का फर्क है. आप में से काफी लोगों ने मेरे साथ ये टॉपिक्स जीएस में भी किए. ये जो आखिरी के 2-3 लाइन्स हम लोग लिख रहे हैं, ये 2-3 पॉइंट्स, ये मैं जीएस में नहीं लिखवाता, बिकॉज इन जीएस यू डोंट नीड इट. GS won't push you into these details. Optional can. So that is the difference between optional and GS. But when I teach you things in GS, I stop at LERMS, I tell you the story of LERMS, thank you, bye-bye, after that. But when I teach you the same thing in optional, I make sure that you don't only know the story of LERMS, you know the analysis of LERMS and thereafter. That okay, why did we go for LERMS and what were the benefits of LERMS or benefits of current account convertibility. Now you put a note below that and write, India does not practice perfect capital mobility. India does not practice perfect capital mobility or full capital account convertibility. एक ही बात है दोनों, whether you call it perfect capital mobility or you call it full capital account convertibility or full capital account convertibility. Full capital account convertibility due to fear of instability. Full stop. Change the paragraph and write, the debate on, okay, before I go further, since I've taught you perfect capital mobility, I hope you already have it in your mind, but when we say full capital account convertibility or perfect capital mobility, it implies that you are putting no restriction on any inflow or any outflow of capital into or out of your country. All right, that is full capital account convertibility. Any amount of money can be brought into the country and any amount of money can be taken out of the country. People can invest in any sector without any restriction and people can take out their money from any sector without any restriction. That kind of decision making is called full capital account convertibility. No restriction on any movement on capital account. So what are the movements on capital account? FDI, FII and borrowings. These are the three things, or lending. Now these are the movements on capital account. So full capital account convertibility means that you won't put restrictions like I will not allow more than 49% foreign shareholding in this sector, or I will not allow more than 74% foreign shareholding in that sector, or you cannot send more than $250,000 out of India in 1 year. All these are restrictions on capital account, and then we say that we have partial capital account convertibility and not full capital account convertibility. If all these restrictions are removed, then we say there is full capital account convertibility. You understand the point? All right. You write then, the debate on full capital account convertibility, full capital account convertibility began in India in 1994 when IMF suggested that India should have more liberal rules on capital account. Full stop. The supporters of, and we will keep calling it CAC, capital account convertibility. The supporters of full CAC, reasoned that it is important for following purposes. And we take it as A, B, C, D. So you write A. It will help in attracting large amount of inflow of capital as there will be less restriction on its movement. I'll tell you, the reasoning was that if you don't restrict it from flowing out, then people will feel more confident and they will bring more capital into the country. Do I hope I reach you on this? That if you put no restriction on flowing out, अगर आप कहते हो मैं बाहर ले जाने पे कोई restriction नहीं लगाऊंगा, तो लोग अंदर पैसे लाने में भी झिझकेंगे नहीं. There will be no hesitation in bringing money because people will know that there is no restriction on taking it out. So more freedom will attract more capital. Second, you write, it will promote places like Mumbai as financial hub which will increase India's investment potential. So it was said that Mumbai is already a financial center, and given Mumbai as a financial center, if we allow full capital account convertibility, more money will come in, and as more money comes in, better technology comes in, India's investment capacity will rise because our share markets will attract more money, our bond markets will attract more money, and that will improve India's overall position. That was the second contention that was brought in. Third, you write, it will encourage new technology. It will encourage new technology as foreigners will find it convenient, as foreigners will find it convenient to invest in real sector in India. To invest in real sector in India. Real sector means output production sector. Now, why will they find it convenient? Because they can bring any amount of money into India. They can set up 100% subsidiaries. Mind you, 1990s was the time when we did not allow 100% subsidiaries in any company, any factory. कोई भी इंडस्ट्री आप लगाइए, आपको एक इंडियन कंपनी के साथ जॉइंट वेंचर करना होगा. Alright, that is why we had things like Leher Pepsi or Puma Corona or Kawasaki Bajaj, that these people could bring in their investment, but they were not allowed to bring their own 100% subsidiary. That we allowed only from 2001. So in those days, people were saying that if you allow 100% subsidiary, people will bring their own technology to the country, and then we can reverse engineer it. Like if they bring their technology, we can learn from them how to produce better. And then one more you write. Fourth, it keeps government disciplined. It keeps government disciplined with respect to fiscal deficit, and current account deficit, to avoid very large outflow. So that was the fourth reason given. It was said that if you go for full capital account convertibility, the government will know that any macroeconomic instability, high fiscal deficit, high current account deficit, high inflation, the foreign investors will go out in droves. They will go out in large numbers. And therefore, it's easy to maintain discipline, and government will have the incentive to maintain discipline if you bring full capital account convertibility. So these were the reasons given for full CSE to be brought into India. But there were counterpoints to these. You write below that, the opponents of full CSE gave following reasons. The opponents of full CSE gave following reasons. And you write, first, financial regulation in India is weak. Again, don't forget, 1990s, SEBI did not have statutory power. And even if with SEBI having statutory power, the whole technical capacity to handle large inflows and so on is even today not very well developed. Forget in those days. All right. So that was the trouble point. That financial. Could you tell me the line you wrote? Yeah. In India is weak, and capacity to regulate is weak. Financial regulation in India is weak, and capacity to regulate is weak, which makes the markets vulnerable, to manipulation. Makes the market vulnerable to manipulation. That's challenge one. That what if you have a currency attack? What if there is manipulation? Some people deliberately prop up the market and then make profit and go out of it. All right, so that was one factor that was brought in, that we are not very well regulation wise. Second, you write any negative news, anywhere in the world, any negative news anywhere in the world will make Indian markets vulnerable to shocks of sudden outflow. Will make Indian market vulnerable to shocks of sudden outflow. I hope you understand this. Even today, see, we don't have full capital account convertibility, but we have allowed for some convertibility and some freedom. And you will see Americans report something wrong, money flows out of our system. Chinese market has some problem, money flows out from our system. That is the shock we have to expose ourselves to. Also remember, 1990s, even early 2000s, we did not have enough foreign exchange reserves that we could have easily tolerated these shocks. You know, today with $500 billion, even the speculators know that they don't have to touch us. We have a hell lot of money at the moment. But imagine with $20 billion or $10 billion with a big country like India, the trouble always remained. Even with $50 billion, we were not out of the woods. So that was another contention, that any negative news will hurt us if we go for full CAC. We won't be able to stop money from flowing out. Third, you write, it will restrict the government from following independent monetary and fiscal policy. For example, if my economy is in a recession and I want to go for expansionary fiscal and monetary policy, but if the other economies are not facing that recession and they are going for, say, they are booming, and a major economy is contracting its monetary policy or fiscal policy, if I don't do the same, I might lose my money in the short run. Easiest example is what happened with Americans increasing their interest rate. I told you already the story while teaching you money and banking, that RBI was not in a position to increase interest rates so soon. Why? Because India was having unemployment issue and India was having inflation within control. जैसे हमारे यहाँ अखबार में ये चर्चा होती है, पहले भी हम ये बात कर चुके हैं, बस याद दिला रहा हूँ तुम्हें, that RBI ने सितंबर 2021 से क्यों नहीं बढ़ाना शुरू कर दिया इंटरेस्ट रेट. लेकिन वो क्यों शुरू करते? September 2021, inflation in India was below 6%, so within RBI's tolerance level. But September 2021, unemployment in India was not within the level that we would have liked. So RBI said, okay, let's go for some more accommodation. They brought in contractionary policies. For example, they brought in policies like variable reverse repo rate. They brought in policies like curbing the long-term repo operations. All this they were doing, but they didn't go for repo increase. Then people say, but look, Americans did it. Well, Americans did it because America's inflation was at 8% in that month. Now 8% means 4% more than their maximum tolerance limit. America's maximum tolerance limit is 4%. They follow an inflation target of 2% plus minus 2%. Now their inflation had reached 4% in August 2021, September 2021. Obviously they were in much more pressure. It was like India's inflation levels reaching 10%. क्योंकि हमारा टॉलरेंस लेवल 6% तक का है, और वो इसलिए क्योंकि हम एक डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी है, तो हम एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि हमारा इन्फ्लेशन थोड़ा होगा. So now imagine they were far ahead of their tolerance level. Then they started increasing their rates. Also, American job market was showing record increase in growth. अभी भी जैसे आप ये सुनते हैं, ये गूगल ने इतने लोगों को ले ऑफ कर दिया या फेसबुक ने इतने लोगों को ले ऑफ कर दिया, लेकिन अगर आप उनके अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट डेटा को देखें अमेरिका के, Americans are having the best employment data in last 40 odd years today. Even now, forget last year or 2 year before last. Now that means that if I am a central banker and I see that my inflation is 4% above the targeted rate, and I see that my unemployment is far below what is there, I'll be happy increasing the interest rate. But if I am a central banker in India who sees that inflation is not beyond my tolerance level and unemployment is quite high, I won't be increasing my interest rate immediately. But since the Americans kept increasing their interest rate and there was heavy money outflow from India, it forced Indian central bank to increase its interest rate. That's what I'm telling you, that when you go for capital account convertibility, and Mundell-Fleming model has already taught us that, you lose your monetary independence. And then you don't only lose your monetary independence, you also lose your fiscal independence. How? Because if the government's fiscal deficit level goes up, what will happen to bond price? If government's fiscal deficit goes up, what will happen to bond price in the country? Bond price will fall because government will supply extra bonds, and that will mean bond yield will rise. Now, that is why whenever countries are highly susceptible to increase in fiscal deficit, the credit rating agencies start giving them low value. Because the credit rating agencies are saying, look, this country will take more loans, this country will take more debt. If you buy bonds in this country today, the value of bond will go down and your chances of losing money is high. तो इसीलिए क्रेडिट रेटिंग एजेंसी हमें लो वैल्यू दे देते हैं अगर फिस्कल डेफिसिट हाई दिखने लगे. अब गवर्नमेंट्स भी कॉन्शियस होती हैं इस बात को लेकर, तो उनके दिमाग में क्या रहता है, जो मैक्सिमम खर्चा करना है कर ले, बट फिस्कल डेफिसिट हाई नहीं दिखना चाहिए. 2019 onwards, thankfully India did this good thing. I was saying that in the budget lecture also yesterday, that we have improved on one very good part, that we don't show extra budgetary expenditures now, we don't do them. Just don't do off-budget borrowings. All the borrowings are shown in the budget. That's very transparent. But from 2007-8, India had developed this habit of doing a lot of off-budget borrowing. Now what is this off-budget borrowing? Where you are doing the borrowing, it's not visible in the budget. Our state governments are championing that at the moment. State Electricity Board के नुकसान. अब borrow कौन करता है? State Electricity Board. तो state government के budget में नहीं दिखता वो, लेकिन finally कौन पैसा देगा? State government. That's an off-budget borrowing. You understand that? That I'm not showing it on the budget, but finally I will bear the liability. So this is indiscipline. Food Corporation of India को dues नहीं pay किए. So if you're not paying dues to Food Corporation of India, you don't pay. FCI is your company, but end of the day, one day you got to pay. ये तो है नहीं कि आप lifelong pay नहीं करेंगे. Who will take the burden that day? You got to take it. इसीलिए इंडिया का फूड सब्सिडी बिल 2021 में 5.2 लाख करोड़ था. 2021 के बजट की बात कर रहा हूं, जो कोविड पैंडेमिक के बाद का बजट था. The food subsidy bill was 5.2 lakh crore. You know why? Because 2.8 lakh crore rupees we paid to FCI to pay back their old dues. 2,80,000 crore के ड्यूज अक्यूमुलेट करके हम बैठे हुए थे. FCI को पैसे ही नहीं देते थे, बजट में नहीं दिखाना होता था. कोविड पैंडेमिक ने मौका दे दिया कि चलो फिस्कल डेफिसिट हाई होगा तो कोई बात नहीं है, पीपल आर टेकिंग इट इन द स्ट्राइड. कम से कम हमने निपटा दिया उसको. वी शोड दैट ड्यू, पेड इट बैक. हाँ, आपदा को अवसर में बदल दिया. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that now we are in central government budget, we are still doing better. Now the off-budget borrowings and all are not there. State governments are still not out of the woods. They're still doing a lot of off-budget borrowing. And all that is done for what? To prove that I don't have a high fiscal deficit. And why do you want to prove that I don't have a high fiscal deficit? Because you want to tell the investors, there is no threat, come over. And the only solace we can derive is that we are not alone in it. Greece, Portugal, I told you the story while teaching you European crisis. They are rich enough countries still doing this cheating. So that is where everybody has to be careful. The world is very vulnerable at the moment. I've told you that also already. The capital to real capital ratio, financial capital to real capital ratio is almost 3.3:1. So in that case, when you borrow, the capital account convertibility part comes into picture. If you have full CAC, it will mean any small drop from your side, and the investors will rush away. They'll say, my money is in trouble here. And that fluctuation you can afford only when you have deep pockets. अगर अमेरिका है अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं, जर्मनी है अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं, तो ये इन देशों ने फुल सीएसी अलाउ किया हुआ है, बोलते हैं कोई बात नहीं। प्लस इन देशों का मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक स्टेबिलिटी क्वेश्चनेबल नहीं होता, so in that case they can do well. We are not able to do that well there. So that is our next challenge. Then you write one more. Currency. Currency attack is when somebody deliberately pushes your currency value down. The way it happened in East Asia by George Soros. Alright, he deliberately started buying dollar in East Asia, which meant that dollar values went up and he was now selling all the East Asian currencies, mainly South Korean currency, Malaysian currency, Thai currency. That's a currency attack. That people are deliberately pushing your currency value down because they speculate. If suppose this marker is worth 5 rupees and people have seen this marker I hold in as my asset, but people have put 15 rupees on this, the value, because they are exuberant, they are enthusiastic that this company is going to do well. That's a financial capital to real capital ratio 3:1. ऐसी इसी बात पे एक मजाक बस कर रहा हूं आप लोगों के साथ। जैसे जितने पढ़े लिखे हम लोग होते हैं, हमारी डिग्री उससे ज्यादा बताती है मेजॉरिटी केसेस में। हम उतने पढ़े लिखे थोड़ी होते हैं, हमारी डिग्री बोलती है मास्टर्स इन अ सब्जेक्ट, और सब्जेक्ट के बेसिक निकालना शुरू करो, मास्टर की मास्टरी झड़नी शुरू हो जाती है। वो तो डिग्री बता रहा है। और मास्टर्स वो लोग हैं जो 3 किताब नहीं पढ़ सकते और 5 डिस्कशन नहीं कर सकते। मैं सभी की बात नहीं कर रहा हूं, तो आप ये मत सोचिए कि सर मुझे बोल रहे हैं। मैं जानता हूं आप में से कुछ लोग जबरदस्त पढ़ते हो, हमारे टाइम पे भी हम कुछ लोग बहुत जबरदस्त पढ़ते थे। मैं बात कर रहा हूं ऑन एन एवरेज जो मैं इंडिया के देखता हूं, कि जो कहने के लिए आई एम अ मास्टर्स इन माय सब्जेक्ट, और किसी ने ग्रेजुएशन फर्स्ट ईयर का सवाल पूछा तो मामला वहां फंस गया। फिर मास्टर्स कैसे हुए? फिर जहां मास्टर्स कर रहे हैं, अगर कोई अच्छी जगह है जहां पे फिर भी थोड़ी इज्जत बची हुई है, अभी बहुत जगह बचे हुए इंडिया में ऐसे, कुछ आप लोग आते हैं दिल्ली स्कूल एंड ऑल से, तो वहां पर तो फिर भी इज्जत बची हुई है, तो फेल होने का पूरा डर होता है। वो आपको फेल करा देते हैं, नंबर कम दे देते हैं, तो लोग डर के मारे पढ़ लेते हैं। कुछ अच्छे जगह भी है इंडिया में, नाम नहीं लूंगा मैं, लेकिन वहां कोई डर नहीं, सब कुछ चल रहा है ठीक। आप एग्जाम दीजिए, क्लियर कीजिए, नंबर लाइए, खुद को मास्टर्स बताइए, सोचिए भी कि मैं मास्टर्स हूं। ये बात से बस मुझे थोड़ी आपत्ति होती है। अब मजाक में कह रहा था तो मैं समझाना ये चाह रहा था, अगेन योर रियल कैपिटल इज वैल्यूड मच मोर देन फाइनेंशियल कैपिटल, देन व्हाट इज योर रियल वैल्यू। Real value is based on what do I know about my subject, how much detail I can have gone into my subject, not on the basis of what degree I hold in my subject. You can hold a degree, but the larger question is how much do you know? And about masters, I repeat, it's not only about the marks you scored, it's not only about whether you have read a book or not, it's about whether you can actually appreciate debates on your subject or not. That is my real pointer. I see many people in India who cannot do elementary debate and cannot even understand elementary debate on subjects in which they are graduates. Elementary debates नहीं समझ सकते हैं क्योंकि बेसिक्स हिली हुई हैं, समझ ही नहीं आता क्या बात करें क्या कहें। बाई चांस 4 लोगों ने डिबेट में पार्टिसिपेट कर लिया तो 4 लोग बेचारे दुखी हो जाते हैं, क्यों बढ़ा रहे हो बात को, इसको बोल के चुप हो जाने दो, लिखवा देने दो, जाने दो, क्योंकि हमें आदत तक है ना, यही करूंगा। बट वेयर इज द सब्जेक्ट देन? यू डोंट नो। And no question, I mean, nobody testing your knowledge will be testing you on what you have learned. People testing your knowledge will test you on how you can apply what you have learned. यूपीएससी में भी ये होता है, इसलिए रुक के तुम्हें ये लेक्चर देने लगा था। ये सारी बातें जो सीख रहे हो, एप्लीकेशन आती हैं फिर इनकी, वो क्वेश्चन को थोड़ा ट्विस्ट कर देते हैं। हम सडनली चारों खाते चित, पूछा क्या, मुझे पता ही नहीं चला। पता नहीं चला क्योंकि सोचे ही नहीं उसके बारे में कभी। हमारी पढ़ाई का तरीका, ये मजाक ही कर रहा हूं अभी भी, लेकिन सोच के देखना इन बातों को, हमारे पढ़ने का तरीका और पढ़ाने का तरीका जो हमारे यहाँ बहुत फेमस है, वो पता है क्या है? ये घोड़े की तरह ऐसे लगा दो दोनों साइड, और ऐसे झुका दो, मैं बोलता जाऊं तुम लिखे जाओ लिखे जाओ लिखे जाओ। अब बाई चांस घोड़े को बोलो कि इधर भी देखना है और उधर भी देखना है, तो सवाल ही नहीं है, नो क्वेश्चन, मैं ऐसे देखूंगा बस। अब आप ही वो हटाइए और घोड़े को बोलिए प्लीज उधर देखो, फिर घोड़ा बेचारा उधर देख लेता है, फिर आप दूसरे तरफ हटाइए, यारे घोड़े उधर भी देखो। ये समझा रहा हूं, ये एजुकेशन हमारा किलिंग एजुकेशन है, जो हमारे रियल वैल्यू को कम करता है, हाँ हमारे नॉमिनल वैल्यू को हाई रखता है, बिकॉज नॉमिनली ऑल ऑफ अस फील दैट वी आर डूइंग गुड। In case you don't, I am asking you a simple question and you raise your hand. I know some of you would know the answer, but don't give the answer. जिनको नहीं आता ना वो भीड़ के पीछे बच जाते हैं। तो मैं आपसे एक सवाल पूछता हूं, आप याद मुझे बताइए, import duty reduction will attract foreign investors into India, which will lead to India becoming a manufacturing hub. What impact will it have on balance of payment? Import duty reduction will attract foreign investors into India, will make India a manufacturing hub. What impact will it have on balance of payment account? Yeah. Surplus. Somebody says deficit. Depends. Okay, I reframe my question. Let me ask you this once again. I reframe it. Why do we need to have larger investments in India? What is the limit on that we can incorporate? Okay, what happens if FDI in India goes beyond 3% of GDP? At the moment it is 2%, 2.1% of GDP. What happens if it goes beyond 3%, 2.5% of GDP? Why? पहला क्वेश्चन को भूलना मत, दोनों जुड़े हुए सवाल हैं। Now, try understanding it this way. If you have high import in your country, or if you allow high import in your country, and you are now demanding the foreign exchange reserves for those imports, and what are those imports doing? I'm not talking about oil imports alone, I'm talking about imports of components and imports of commodities. What are those imports doing? Creating a demand for foreign exchange reserves. What is this import coming for? It is coming for creating export-oriented industries. So that will mean that to meet their requirement, that will mean you have some export-oriented industries in your country, so your exports can go ahead, and that will mean some exchange can come in. But now if you allow FDI, your capacity to absorb FDI, capital account, is limited by your capacity of current account deficit. एक्स्ट्रा पैसा लेके क्या करोगे भाई? फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व में रखते जाओगे ना बस, और क्या करोगे उसका? अगर आपको आ भी गया एक्स्ट्रा पैसा, चाइना की तरह $3 ट्रिलियन रखो, फिर पाकिस्तान में पैसा लगा के डुबा लो। कर क्या रहे हम? तो चाइनीज हैव अ $3 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी, सो your capacity to absorb FDI is dependent on your capacity to create a current account deficit. So we should not be worried about a current account deficit. अब यही डिबेट कल फिर रिलीज करूंगा, आज घर जाके एक बार करंट अकाउंट और कैपिटल अकाउंट पढ़ के आना। कल ये डिबेट मुझे करना है आपके साथ ग्लोबलाइजेशन पढ़ाते हुए, लेकिन आज आपके दिमाग में डाल रहा हूं। पहली बात, किसी भी चीज का आंसर सिर्फ यस या नो नहीं हो सकता, ये मैरिज प्रपोजल नहीं है, इकोनॉमिक्स है। ऑलराइट, वुड यू मैरी मी, यस और नो? आई थिंक नहीं, बोलो हाँ या ना। नहीं, ये अलग दुनिया है वो, ठीक है, ये दुनिया अलग है, ये थोड़ी दिमाग लगाने वाली दुनिया है। उसके लिए तैयारी करनी पड़ेगी कि पहले तो करंट अकाउंट और कैपिटल अकाउंट के संबंध को समझें कि दोनों का, और डिफेंसिव मत हो और बिल्कुल भी अपॉलोजेटिक मत हो। ये एक और दिक्कत है, मैं कोई सवाल पूछूं, बाई चांस दिमाग ने स्ट्रगल किया, हाँ ये थोड़ी होता है, अचानक थोड़ी स्ट्राइक करता है, थोड़ा सोचते तो हमें आ जाता, ये तुम्हारा ईगो बोल रहा है, उसको रोक लो. हमारे our ego tries protecting us. No, I would have known. Who cares? Let him ask questions. I ask questions to teach you, train you how to make the mind run. If you can analyze Indian economy only when you know your paper one theory is better. So I again repeat, revise your current account and capital account. Imagine now, if you have a capital account surplus and you are getting 150 billion, 200, 300, 500 billion dollars coming into your country, what will you do with that money if you don't have to pay somebody abroad? डॉलर इंडिया में थोड़ा ही चलेगा, और चलेगा तो इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ाएगा, तो किसी को तो पे करना पड़ेगा ना उससे हमें बाहर, तब उस इनफ्लो का फायदा है. इसीलिए एफडीआई एक लिमिट तक ही हमें फायदा दे सकती है. एक्चुअल फायदा अगर करना है तो सेविंग्स बढ़ानी होंगी, और सेविंग्स कब बढ़ेगा? जब इनकम बढ़ेंगी, और इनकम कब बढ़ेगा? जब इन्वेस्टमेंट हो देश में, डोमेस्टिक एज वेल एज फॉरेन. और इन्वेस्टमेंट कब होंगे? फॉरेन स्पेशली, इवन डोमेस्टिक, जब आप इंडिया को एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाओ. और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब कब बनेगा? जब आप इंडिया के इंपोर्ट ड्यूटीज को कम करो, ताकि लोग साउथ ईस्ट एशिया ना जाएं. ASEAN has import duty at 4%, 3%, 2%. People go to ASEAN, set up their firm there. South Korea has an import duty of 5%. Japan has an import duty of 2-3%. Chinese SEZ have import duty 0%. Why will a foreign firm come to India with an average import duty of 15%? So always think broad, understand, internalize, think over, and then see, okay, this is how my theory that I read in current account, capital account gets implemented in practice. That is why import restriction is not necessarily a good idea. Rather let imports come in. Import में दिक्कत, तुम अपना खर्चा थोड़ी रोक लेते हो भाई, आमदनी बढ़ाते हो. इंपोर्ट क्यों रोक लोगे? एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ाओ. हाँ, वेस्टेज रोक सकते हो. अगर आपने 500 लीटर वेस्ट करते हुए पेट्रोल, वो रोक लो. That I don't react negatively to. But saying that, oh, don't let the currency depreciate, try stopping imports, produce with inefficient people in your own country. These inefficient people are eating into your resources. Why don't we realize that? उसी रिसोर्स से कोई और आके ज्यादा प्रोडक्शन कर सकते हैं, तुम वो ज्यादा प्रोडक्शन को बाहर बेच के ज्यादा पैसा कमा सकते हो. ये बात सोचते नहीं हम लोग, इसीलिए बता रहा हूं कि डिग्रीज मिल जाती हैं हमें. हम बैठकर इन बातों पे सोचते नहीं हैं. तो ये सिखाना चाह रहा हूं तुम्हें. अभी 7-8 दिन 10 दिनों में हम लोग क्लास के लिए नहीं मिलेंगे, हाँ टेस्ट सीरीज एंड ऑल के लिए मिलेंगे जरूर. बट द लेगेसी आई वांट यू टू लीव विथ मी, यू नो, जिसके साथ मैं चाहता हूं, अगर कोई तुमसे पूछे विभास सर से क्या सीखे, मैं चाहता हूं तुम ये बोलो कि सीखे कि सब्जेक्ट अप्लाई कैसे करते हैं, सोचते कैसे हैं अपने सब्जेक्ट पर. ये सब तो मैं रटवा ही दूंगा, चिंता मत करो. अभी सारे टेस्ट सीरीज के साथ अभी बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस भी रटवाऊंगा, उसकी चिंता नहीं है मुझे. बट कितना भी मैं रटवा दूं, तुम्हारे 280 290 नंबर 300 नंबर तभी आते हैं जब तुम एग्जाम में एग्जामिनर को कुछ ऐसा लिख के दो जो एनालिसिस एग्जामिनर को उतनी ज्यादा नहीं, बाकी लोग लिख के नहीं दे रहे हैं. तो तुम्हें वो बोलते हैं दिस एनालिसिस इज समथिंग which is well read. It's not new or absurd. It's well read. I've read more places and hence I know more. That should be your approach while taking such exams. ये application इसी से सीखते हैं. तो इसीलिए तुम्हें बार बार कहता हूं that import restriction is not the solution to India's issues. Let the import come as much as they come. Export promotion, currency depreciation, protect by depreciating the currency. Capital account convertibility restricted is okay. What will I do with a lot of capital coming into my country? You understand that? तो ये एक application की बात की. I just talked one application to you. You wait till I give you the test series. In every test, I will put 3-4 applications, and I will check how you write your answers. But we will see how that comes. But first of all, I will again repeat. First of all, give 2-3 revisions to your basic macro, balance of payment, international economics, and all those theories, so that you are able to appreciate the discussions better. Always remember that. get cut out for this exam. That is the whole part. You know, I'll give you a question to write at the end of this class. Let us see how you write that answer. Yes, yes. We'll discuss it. You wait. But dollar reserves increasing beyond a point is useless. Useless is the word I'm using. You know, you don't have to do much with it. All right. But beyond a point, beyond what you need for your basic protection. That is the point, that it can be used for doing investment in some other country, assuming you have the political clout to get the money back if that other country defaults. Of course, again, it can be used, but that also has a limited scope, like the Chinese are facing now. सब लोगों को अमेरिका क्यों लोन देता था? चलिए आपके सब्जेक्ट का एप्लीकेशन ये भी समझिए. सारे लोन अमेरिका क्यों देता है? वर्ल्ड बैंक में अमेरिका क्यों नेता है? आईएमएफ में अमेरिका क्यों नेता है? क्योंकि अमेरिका इस दुनिया में सबसे बड़े गुंडे हैं ना, उनको लोगों को पता है हम इनका पैसा लेके नहीं भाग सकते. Everybody knows that I can't run away with their money. When Chinese reached that clout, they said, now you take my money. I won't let you run away with my money. But इंडिया की वो हैसियत थोड़ी है अभी. People can nationalize our investments. अफगानिस्तान में हमारे इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हैं ना. हम क्या कर पाए जब तालिबान ने उनको नहीं हमें उसको यूज करने दिया? तो हमारी वो औकात है. तालिबान को हिम्मत थोड़ी है कि चाइनीज को बोलें कि आप अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट यूज मत करिए. They don't have that courage. अमेरिकन को भी नहीं बोल सकते. इंडिया के केस में उन्होंने साइलेंटली बोला ठीक है तुमने ये पोर्ट डेवलप किया था अब हम यूज करेंगे तुम जाओ. हमने भी कहा ठीक है कर ही लो, देखता हूं. ये बता रहा हूं that you can lend out to people with your foreign money. You can use for all that purposes. Soft power you can develop, but again beyond a point, how much? So always be very careful when it comes to using money and developing things. Again, this I asked you because this is a going debate in India, big debate, that should India do import substitution or should India go for export promotion? What are the benefits of export promotion? Why import substitution may not help India in the long run to develop itself as a manufacturing hub? These are the questions raging in India at the moment. All right, so you should be well read on these questions as good as possible. All right, let's see this then. वापस आ जाओ अपने टाइम पर. अब देखना दिमाग फिर चलेगा. लिखवा रहे हो ठीक है मेरे अच्छे आदमी. मैं यही तोड़ना चाहता हूँ. इस माइंडसेट को तोड़ो कि जब कुछ में मुझे लिखवाया जा रहा है तो वो सीरियस है, बाकी मैं अपने सब्जेक्ट को ज्यादा नहीं सोचूंगा. ये 15 साल 16 साल के हमारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम की पॉलिशिंग है हम पर कि जब लिखवाया जाए तो ही कुछ सीरियस बात हो रही है, वरना तो मैं टाल सकता हूं बात को. सोचो बातों पे, क्योंकि यूपीएससी एक्सपेक्ट करता है कि तुम सोच के लिखो, और सिर्फ ऑप्शनल में नहीं, जीएस में भी. दे एक्सपेक्ट यू टू थिंक, दे डोंट एक्सपेक्ट यू टू मग अप. सो यू गॉट टू सिट डाउन एंड थिंक. Spend time, love your subjects. Lateral linkages ढूंढो, वो करना जरूरी है. तभी रुक के तुम्हें लेक्चर देने लगा, क्योंकि हम मेजॉरिटी ट्रेंड होते हैं. अच्छा इतना सर ने लिखवा दिया, इतना पढ़ लूंगा, 2 बार पढ़ लूंगा, सोचूंगा नहीं उसके ऊपर क्या लिखवाया. यही चाहता हूं, सोचो तो सही उसके ऊपर. पढ़कर आधा घंटा दे दो, सोचे क्या है? एब्सर्ड सोचो, बकवास सोचो, फर्क क्या पड़ता है? There is no problem in that. But we sometimes don't even think. We are so busy completing the syllabus and still don't qualify. The paradox is that. But we don't qualify because we never understood the syllabus. The syllabus was expecting us to think. We were busy learning. So just be careful on that. That you don't have to get so busy learning that you forget thinking on what you have learned. The application goes completely missing then. Anyways, you take this up, then you write. You've written 3 points? Yeah. Could you tell me the last point you wrote? Yeah, thank you, thank you. 4th point you write, it results in increasing vulnerability increasing vulnerability of financial markets in a country like India, because of low level of participation of retail investors. That's another challenge that you have. Indian markets are thin market, as we call them. Thin market means very few people participate. So one big participant can influence the market. Very few people participate. So one big participant can influence the market. That's again a challenge for full capital account convertibility in India. There's a question one of your friend asks me online. To what extent depreciation is helpful? To the extent that your currency is stable in real exchange rate terms. Let it depreciate to that extent. And then it says that under full capital account convertibility, if someone brings hundreds, then what amount of rupee she gets? Okay, you mean full convertibility. Then 100 into 30 Hemant, market rate, जो लिखे हो उसी को अप्लाई करो. इसी को एप्लीकेशन कह रहा था मैं अभी. मार्केट रेट ही बताया E equals to 30, $100 लेकर आए तो $100 into 30 ही होगा ना. All right. People's perception on sustenance of even dwindling PSUs are mainly the reasons. I'll tell you that, not the job tags, it's mostly the training that we get. Policy trilemma you can mention. There is another question, that is China powerful due to forex accumulation or being manufacturing hub? Why do Chinese have accumulated forex? Their exports are high. आपको जो मन में आता है बोलो. Why do you think Chinese have such high forex reserves? They have something like $3 trillion. नहीं, पाकिस्तान को मत लाओ बीच में. How did they accumulate this money? By exporting. That is why their money is more stable money. They are not accumulating it by a lot of FDI only coming to their country. They are one country which is running practically a BOP surplus with a current account surplus with every country with whom they trade. You know, they are practically one country of this world. And this they have been doing for 15, 20 years now. Between 1996 and 2015, all industries in China and lot of commodities sold. So it's not about India alone. Can you imagine their trade surplus with America is $430 billion. $430 billion, their trade surplus with America. Their trade surplus with India, almost $100 billion. Their trade surplus with Japan, $170 billion. Why are Americans, Japanese running such high trade surplus? Are they mad? No, because American companies manufacture commodities in China and sell them cheaper in America. So Americans are happy that their producers are getting things cheaper. And how do the Americans compensate for that trade deficit? By selling the Japanese their own foreign exchange reserves, American dollar denominated bonds. You understand that? That is how the Japanese are also taking care of things. So the Chinese are accumulating a lot of foreign exchange reserves by selling more to the world. When you sell more to the world and accumulate foreign exchange reserves, you're not borrowing in any sense from anyone. Then they are in real sense a reserve for you. That is why Chinese are rich in real sense of the term. But even if there is an FPI coming into my country, तो bond खरीदेंगे ना, shares खरीदेंगे, मेरे ऊपर कोई ना कोई liability तो बना ही रहे हैं. Any inflow of foreign investment creates some liability on me. Of course, it's not that bad a liability as borrowing, but there is some liability on me. But imagine if I can be the seller to the world, which Chinese became for close to 15, 20 years. We're in a lovely situation. एक तरफ आप सामान भी बेच रहे हो, दूसरा तरफ उनसे उनको कर्ज भी दे रहे हो क्योंकि आप उनके बॉन्ड खरीद रहे हो. So, and how could the Chinese do it? Again, you need to keep that in mind. The Chinese could do it through their special economic zones. They went for complete liberalized policies in their SEZ by opening it up entirely, reducing import duty to 0%, allowing offshore banking, keeping flexible labor law. All that meant that the foreigners chose them for the greed that the capitalists had. Deng was a smart person. He knew these guys will come. He had studied them well. Anybody knows where did Deng take education? Sir, syllabus में बताया नहीं था. He took his education in Paris, a trained engineer. 1921 से लेकर 1926 तक पेरिस में थे वो 5 साल. कैपिटलिज्म को बिल्कुल गौर से देखा था उन्होंने. उनको पता था लालची लोग हैं, पैसे दिखाओ आएंगे, इसलिए उन्होंने SEZ बनाया. उन्होंने बोला SEZ बनाओ, क्रिएट SEZ एंड ओपन अप द मार्केट, लेट दीज गाइज कम हियर. Why do you think Manmohan Singh ji could do reforms in India, or Narasimha Rao ji for that matter? They knew the West well. Why is S. Jaishankar able to manage the policy so well, foreign policy? He has been a foreign secretary in the past. He knows the West pretty well. He knows Chinese very well. He has been the longest serving ambassador to China. So we can trust these people for being experts in what they do. Deng was one such. पढ़े लिखे आदमी थे भाई, इंजीनियर थे, फ्रांस जाकर PhD की डिग्री कर रहे थे. वो तो बीच में फिर अपना चाइना में हंगामा हुआ, लड़ाई हुई, तो वो बोले मैं भी आ गया कूदने के लिए. तो अपना आके कूद गए at a very young age of 27 and then participated in the Chinese Civil War. That was Deng. That is why Mao was very upset with Deng. I'm sorry for this digression, but since I brought up Deng, I will quickly tell you this that happened. Deng ने Mao को बोला great leap forward मत करो. Deng was one among his closest coteries of Mao. Mao would trust him decently. जो final panel of 5 था Mao के साथ, उसके Deng एक member थे till as late as 1965. Then Deng told Mao that don't go for cultural leap, it won't help, it is going to destroy China. Mao being Mao got angry, but since he loved Deng a lot, because Deng had been with him since 1926, he didn't kill Deng. Mao is on record saying this. He tells Deng, if it hadn't been you, I would have banished. But Deng के लिए punishment था, उनको गांव में भेज दिया लोगों को एजुकेट करने के लिए, और एक रूम का घर दे दिया वाइफ के साथ. Deng, before he left, pleaded with Mao, don't make sure that my children are treated as if they were your children. Because Deng was worried that his children will die. Because his second son, by some accident, people say that Mao was behind it, fell down from the window 2 stories below the place and developed paralysis in the entire back. तो Deng समझ गए कि ये कौन कर रहे हैं. तो उन्होंने जहां पर वो थे विलेज में, वहां से माओ को चिट्ठी लिखा that I have no ambitions and I am very sorry for not having understood the great idea that you had. So now I would just like to tell you that my children are like your children and they are under your protection since I am not there. It was only when Mao realized that Great Leap Forward has not succeeded at all, Cultural Revolution, sorry, Mao again seeks Deng in 1973, gets him back to China, to Beijing, and tells him that, look, I have pardoned you for what you did. Don't do it again. Now these are the trouble points we see. What is your suggestion? And that was when Deng again started rising in prominence. And then when Mao died, there was a 2-year succession battle between Deng on one side and the Gang of Four, as they were called, Mao's wife and Fula Gong and Shao Fu and Tong Lu. These were 4 people on one side and Deng on another. And then for 2 years, but Deng was very sharp and much sharper than these. And then 78, finally, all these 4 people were sent to exile. Deng becomes China's head, and then he starts doing these reforms. Because he was, and by the time he had become China's head, don't forget that also, he was already a ripe 74. 74 साल के थे डेंग उस वक्त, कोई छोटी उम्र नहीं थी उनकी. But very alert and making sure that China grows well. And for 14 years, he did not let the things go slow and brought all these changes. Just told you these stories because some people make a huge difference to their country's system. Deng was one such, who did it. Unfortunately, Xi Jinping will do it the other way around. ये मैं आज बोल रहा हूँ, हम सब hopefully जिंदा रहेंगे ही. आप 20 साल बाद मेरी बात याद करके सुन लेना, देख लेना कि 20 साल बाद जब आप देखेंगे चाइनीज डिस्टर्बेंस तो बोलना एक था बुड्ढा उस वक्त क्लास में बोल रहा था. You wait and watch, provided Xi Jinping lives another 7-8 years. You wait and watch what he is exactly undoing what Deng had done. Deng had done that, had made up China. Xi Jinping in his whole idea of self-grandeur is not realizing that country is not about grandorship. Country is more about remaining below the radar. Chinese were doing pretty well till they were not picking fights with the Americans. अभी अमेरिका क्यों कॉन्शियस हो गया चाइना को लेके? क्योंकि चाइना ने झगड़ा करना शुरू किया 2011 से. तो ये समझना जरूरी है. बट अगेन जस्ट गिव यू एन आइडिया कि जब आप ये बातें पढ़ते हो, देखते हो, तो समझो कि लोग कहाँ से आए, क्या पढ़े, कुछ लोगों ने का क्या इम्पैक्ट रहा, क्यों वो कुछ पॉलिसीज बना पाए. यू विल बी एबल टू अप्रिशिएट आवर ओन सब्जेक्ट बेटर बाय नोइंग ओके दिस इज ऑल वेयर इट कम्स फ्रॉम. एनीवेज मैं इसको इंटेलेक्चुअल परस्यूट बोलता हूँ. कानूनी तरीके से तो ये कॉलेज में सिखाया जाना चाहिए. That you pursue your intellect rather than pursuing marks. कि अच्छा मेरे इतने नंबर आ गए, तेरे इतने कम, मेरे 9.2 CGPA. God knows. क्या कर रहे हो उस CGPA का आज देख लो. UPSC में आधी सीट भी नहीं दिला सकता. वो CGPA तुम्हें. तो वो CGPA तब वैल्यूएबल है अगर तुम पढ़कर वो CGPA लाए अपने सब्जेक्ट को जानकर. बट अगर तुम एग्जाम मैनेज करके CGPA लाए हो तो आज भी सीख जाओ, फायदा नहीं है. एग्जाम मैनेज करके CGPA लाया जा सकता है, ये मैं भी जानता हूँ, लेकिन उससे फायदा नहीं है. हाँ, पढ़ के CGPA हैं तो तुम बिल्कुल राइट ट्रैक पे हो, कोई चिंता की बात ही नहीं है कि तुम अपना सब्जेक्ट जानते हो तगड़ा. तुमने कोई ऐसा नहीं कि 10 रीडिंग थी तो 5 पढ़ के गए और पेपर दिया. 10 पढ़े, उस रीडिंग को डिटेल में समझे. ये भी नहीं कि रीडिंग के नोट्स किसी ने बेच दिए मार्केट में, वो पढ़ के चले गए. अगर वो सब करके नहीं गए और तब नंबर आए हैं, तुम बिल्कुल राइट ट्रैक पे हो. और नहीं तो अब आ जाओ. ये बड़ी सिंपल सी बात है. Anyways, I'm sorry I'm eating it up, but I'm deliberately pushing it far because I need you to develop the mindset to do that. वो आप मस्ती करने से थोड़ी रोक रहा हूँ, वो करो, लेकिन अपनी पढ़ाई को ध्यान दो. नंबर तो अपने आप फॉलो कर लेते हैं फिर. Marks do follow. All right. Yes, yes. Basically, they are restricting their currency from being devalued. Yes. But again, I don't know how far that will help them. Beyond a point, how far it helps you. They had thought initially they will use this money for investments elsewhere, but we see Belt and Road Initiative is not going nowhere at the moment, so maybe that's not working for them. All right, but that's a decent question that you put, that they're accumulating reserves, and they're accumulating it to not let their currency depreciate, no doubt, appreciate, no doubt about that. All right, let's see this then. When we talk about capital account convertibility, now with all this, in India, the government appointed a committee under Mr. S.S. Tarapur, and this was a committee that was appointed twice up actually, once in 1997 and again in 2004. All right, so you write this down, you write, government appointed a committee, government appointed a committee under S.S. Tarapur, T-A-R-A-P-O-R-E, T-A-R-A-P-O-R-E, S.S. Tarapur, in 1997, and in a bracket you can write SST1. This was committee 1. SS Tarapur को SST बना रहा हूँ, तो वहाँ पे लिख लेना SST1. In 1994, 1997 and SST1 and in 2005 in a bracket you write SST2, close the bracket, to examine the feasibility of full CSE in India. Full CSE in India. Capital account convertibility. The committee recommended that India is not prepared for immediate conversion to full CSE full stop. It suggested that this can be contemplated, CONTEMPLATED. This can be contemplated in India only if certain conditions are fulfilled. They are, and again you take them as A, B, C, D. So you write A, fiscal deficit is controlled. Fiscal deficit is controlled. And government sets a target to keep both fiscal deficit and revenue deficit under control. And you know, that is when the government started thinking of FRBM Act. Till then there was nothing called an FRBM Act. Gradually the government started talking about FRBM Act. Second point you write, inflation should be stable. Inflation should be stable and government should keep inflation within a targeted range. Full stop. A committee should be set up to fix an inflation target for India. A committee should be set up to fix an inflation target for India. Then next you write, third, bond market should be well developed. Bond market should be well developed. That is, there should be larger participation. There should be larger participation comma, more freedom to invest, more freedom to invest, and better regulation of bond market. Next you write, government should focus on keeping current account deficit below 1.5%, of GDP to assure stability of exchange rate, which can provide stability to expectations of foreign investors. So, if you read through all these, what was the committee saying? Maintain a proper macroeconomic balance. If you maintain proper macroeconomic balance, you might think about it. All right. In the same thing, you change the paragraph and write, however, you write, however, the committee also warned, WARNED wala warned. The committee also warned that India's macroeconomic structure is fragile and can get negatively affected by internal and external shocks. Internal shocks like, okay, perfect, a bad monsoon and your agriculture does badly and you are in trouble. Internal shocks can also be, for example, if you suddenly have a problem with respect to infrastructure provisioning and you don't complete your projects on time. External shocks, I'm sure all of us understand, that oil prices rising or some important export market going down. So committee was saying that India is not yet out of the woods. But then this debate has been settled in India more or less after 2008 subprime crisis. Because the subprime crisis showed that those countries which were more open to capital account suffered more. And countries which had restrictions on capital account suffered less. So the debate was kind of informally settled there. All right. You change the paragraph and write, after subprime crisis, of 2008, after subprime crisis of 2008, India has restricted the pace of movement towards full capital account convertibility. Full stop. The important restrictions on capital account are, and you can take them as 1, 2, 3. So you write 1, foreign investors are not allowed to hold more than a given amount of total shares in particular Indian industries like insurance, airlines, e-commerce with inventory model. There are two things in e-commerce. One is e-commerce with market model. That is when, as a portal, you are only working to connect buyers and sellers. In that case, 100% FDI is allowed. E-commerce with inventory model means that you are keeping your own things and then selling it in the market. You understand that? That is e-commerce in inventory model. Like say I am Amazon, I am keeping my own products also and I'm selling them through my portal. Then I am practicing inventory model. All right, in that case I am practicing inventory model. In inventory model, the government says you cannot hold more than 49% of FDI. All right, so e-commerce through inventory model, e-commerce through market model. Inventory model, there is a restriction. Insurance, there is a restriction. Airline, there is a restriction. So this is one way in which FDI gets restricted. Second, you write, sells its products like, do you know Amazon Basics, Amazfit? Amazon has not even a 1% share in these companies. That's the interesting thing. The names are same. But Amazon holds not even a single 1% share in these companies. They qualify in that sense. All right. All right. Then they are in the group Amazon. But Amazon, the marketplace, doesn't hold any share here. So what these guys do is they create one particular place which can control all these companies. But if Amazon doesn't hold a share in these companies, then technically Amazon qualifies to do business through these companies. You understand that? That is what happens. ये सवाल तुमने ही कपूरिया सर से भी पूछा था? नहीं, एक दिन सर मुझे फोन करके पूछ रहे थे ये क्या होता है फिर? तो मुझे लगा शायद तुमने उनसे भी पूछा होगा। क्योंकि सर एक दिन मुझे फोन करके पूछ रहे रात को करीब 11 बजे, यार ये अमेजन बेसिक्स कैसे बिकता है फिर? मैंने कहा सर आपको क्या खरीदना है बताइए। But anyways, yeah, but I hope it is clear to you how it goes. All right, you then take the the next thing up, right? The second point. There are sectors in which automatic route of investment is not allowed. Automatic route of investment is not allowed, comma, government approval will be needed. Now see, automatic route of investment is that you can bring your money into India with no restriction, and within 30 days you have to inform RBI, all right, that I have brought money into the country. That is automatic route. But in sectors like defense, sectors like railways, you need a permission from government authority, that is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. इसमें भी एक बात का ध्यान रखना, that government, when we started liberalizing, since then only created these two routes. उस वक्त government ने एक और authority बनाई थी, FIPB, Foreign Investment Promotion Board. This Foreign Investment Promotion Board has been dismantled from 2018-19. From the budget of 2018-19, government said there will be nothing called FIPB anymore. Approvals will be given directly by the government or through automatic route. In case it is through government route, it will go via Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs. So FIPB had been established, Foreign Investment Promotion Board, in 1991 as an agency which will vet the approval. All right, कि आप approval आया, उसकी vetting कोई करेंगे, VETTING बात कर रहा हूँ, तो उसकी vetting कोई करेंगे और ये बात करेंगे कि approval सही है या नहीं. Government said it's an unnecessary window. Why have FIPB when there is a department and there is ministry and then there is Government Committee on Economic Affairs, Cabinet Committee. They went like that. So 2018-19, FIPB removed, and now it's the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs and the concerned ministry which takes a call of whether to allow investments into India if it is coming through government approval route. There are two routes, automatic route and government approval route. Automatic route means you can bring money into India and inform RBI within 30 days. Government approval route means that you have to first take permission from the government before you can bring money into India. Environment Ministry का approval सिर्फ वहाँ required होगा जहाँ पर already inbuilt नहीं है approval system में environmental approvals. अगर कोई नया project है और किसी environmentally sensitive zone में है, बस वहीं required होता है और नहीं होता required नहीं होता. All right, then you take the next thing up, third point. Individual accounts are not allowed. Individual accounts are not allowed to transfer more than $250,000 $250,000 to a foreign country in one accounting year. I hope it's easy, you understand that? That as an individual account holder in India, that from that account, the maximum you can transfer is $250,000. You can transfer more, but you will have to seek permission from RBI. All right, so it's not that it's completely prohibited. The transfer can be made, but a permission from RBI will be needed. Then you write next. External commercial borrowings. External commercial borrowings means the borrowings by private sector in a foreign market. That is external commercial borrowings. The borrowings by private sector in a foreign market. So external commercial borrowings are allowed, but up to $1.5 million, up to $1.5 million, even for a large firm. Even for a large firm. I'll tell you what the government has done. They have said you can borrow abroad, but you can borrow up to $1.5 lakh, up to $7.5 lakh, up to $15 lakh. So the maximum permission under ECB is $1.5 million. The only exception you have is in case of masala bond. Alright, the only exception you have is in case of masala bond, because in case of masala bond, the payment is done in terms of Indian currency. The money will be received in terms of dollar, but the money has to be paid in terms of Indian currency. Alright, that is what is done in masala bonds. Masala bonds are issued abroad, the money is borrowed abroad, you will receive dollars, you will receive euro, but when it comes to paying them back, you have to pay them in terms of rupee. Alright, that is why the name masala bond. Alright. So that is why they said that they are denominated in terms of rupee, because the money is taken in terms of dollar, but the denomination is rupee. I will pay back in terms of rupee. Now what does it mean? The foreign buyer of my bond will have to bear the exchange rate fluctuation risk. I have to pay in rupee terms, so there is no exchange rate fluctuation risk on me. I'll pay in terms of my currency, but the buyer will get currency, the bond buyer, and then they will have to convert it in dollars. So whatever is the fluctuation in rupee dollar exchange rate, they got to take care of that. Alright, so it allows Indian producers the flexibility of raising money abroad while paying it back in domestic currency terms. It is called masala bond because it originated from India. Similar bonds originating in China were called dim sum bonds, and similar bonds originating in Japan were called samurai bonds. Alright. So there have been these bonds in the past. So ye origin ke hisab se masala is for spices here. So masala bond, all right, originating in India. So that is the idea of these bonds. Keep them in mind. There is one more exception in this: green bonds. Whenever a green bond is issued, they don't put it under a restriction of how much money you can raise. And what is a green bond? A green bond is a bond which is issued to finance projects which are for environmental sustainability. Green bonds will be bonds which will be used to finance projects which will be for environmental sustainability. Alright. And what are blue bonds? For marine life, aquatic business, they will be called blue bond. Something else? Nahin, blue bond mein hi kuch aur. Skies is also where blue bond can finance. Alright. So blue bond is for water and skies. Both. The business is related. It can finance that. Anyways, I just told you all these from prelims point of view. Optional won't expect you to write green bonds, blue bonds, and masala bond. Alright, but you should have a basic idea on these. Yes, they can be used for greenfield as well as brownfield projects. Okay. Government route is much faster. FIPB was just, it was not that when government route, FIPB was there, government route was not there. FIPB was there and then you had to seek permission from the government. So it's both. Now FIPB as a window is gone. No. FIPB, you get the clearance here, then go to government. Now you remove this, government becomes the faster method. We'll directly go to the government now. Now this window is what is gone. Earlier there used to be a separate window, extra. So you got the clearance here and then you go here. Now the government says you don't need to go here, gone. Yes. Yes. Please all of you can keep this in mind. If a public sector unit is also borrowing abroad, it will still qualify as a commercial borrowing. All right? Even a public sector borrowing abroad qualifies as a commercial borrowing. You write one more point below this, fifth point. Government has restricted flow of funds for financial investment up to 15% by a foreign entity in one firm in India, 15% by a foreign entity in one firm in India. FII की बात कर रहा हूँ. So the FII that the government permits, it says if there is a foreign entity, the maximum it can put in one firm in India is up to 15% of their total equity or total capital. All right, so whatever is their total capital, not more than 15% will be allowed by a foreign entity, one foreign entity. And you write and up to 24% by all foreign entities in an Indian firm. Full stop. So that means even if there are multiple foreign entities, they cannot hold more than 24% in one Indian company as shares or as capital. All right. So 15% if there is a single entity, 24% if there are multiple entities. That is the limit government has set. You can't bring it into one Indian company. In the same thing you write, government has also introduced KYC norms. KYC is know your customer. KYC norms for all financial investments including investments through participatory notes, These are called P notes. All right. So P notes they were introduced in 1999 by the government. The idea was, suppose if somebody doesn't want to register in India, they don't want to register under SEBI, they don't want to reveal their identity, but they want to invest in India. So in that case, the government said, we will allow the foreign funds who are registered in India, to issue participatory notes to their clients. These clients can buy these participatory notes and the money will be invested in India through the fund which is issuing these notes, and whatever profit they earn, they can share it with the buyers of these participatory notes. So that way the buyers won't have to register in India, but buyers will still be able to gain from India. I repeat my thing again, you listen to this carefully. The government made a rule that we will allow foreign investors to invest in India without registering themselves in an Indian market, by allowing the registered firms in Indian market to issue P notes to them. So the registered firms in Indian market will issue P notes to these buyers. These people will buy these P notes. They don't have to reveal their identity because the responsibility of this money is on that firm which is registered in India. Now this money can be invested in India. Whatever gains they make by investing in India, they can then give it to these P-note holders. Initially from 1999 to 2008, there was no KYC requirement in P-notes. From 1999 to 2008, there was no KYC requirement in P-notes. So a lot of round tripping would happen. कि अपना पैसा सीक्रेटली इंडिया लाना है अगर, तो क्या करो, पी नोट्स के थ्रू ले आओ, और उसको फ्रेश इन्वेस्टमेंट बन जाता था. तो सरकार को यह बात पता चली, तो आरबीआई ने 2008 से एक रूल बनाया that if you are bringing your money through P notes, you will still have to do KYC requirement. Also, the company which is bringing its money through P notes will have to reveal to RBI all its customer details. The customers don't have to register still, but the RBI should know who are the people investing in India via P notes. You understand that? Since then, we have seen a major drop in P notes related investments in India. India also has not bothered about it, because between 99 and now, there has been a lot of there have been a lot of changes in India's foreign institutional investment system. हम काफी liberalize कर गए हैं. We allow more liberal investments in India. So we don't need a P-note kind of a thing anymore to popularize investment in India. But P-notes still continue. They are still in continuation, but they are one method of investing in India. Do I believe it can remain with you? All right. Yes, yes. No, no. They have to be registered with SEBI in India and must have conducted business in India for more than 365 days. All right. Then you write below that. Now, this was the second reform, the reform related to external market reforms, liberalization. And I was just discussing the idea of capital account convertibility with you in India. Then you write, second reform में C part लिखोगे आप. This is still an external sector liberalization. हाँ, किया जा सकता है. हाँ, बिल्कुल किया जा सकता है. All right. You write this up. See, government replaced Foreign Exchange Regulation Act Government replaced Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, and in a bracket you can write FERA, F-E-R-A. Government replaced Foreign Exchange Regulation Act by Foreign Exchange Management Act. Foreign Exchange Regulation Act by Foreign Exchange Management Act, FEMA. FERA was introduced in 1973 and became implemented from 1974, and FEMA was introduced in 1999, became implemented from 2000. All right, that is FERA and FEMA. So remember, when we talk about FERA and FEMA, I again repeat, 1973 introduced, 1974 implemented, 1999 introduced, 2000 implemented. All right, that was FERA and FEMA. Under FERA, remember, under FERA, foreign firms could not hold more than 40% of equity share in domestic firms. Under FEMA, up to 100% subsidiaries are allowed. So that is the first difference, and I'm trying to teach you how FEMA became an improvement over FERA. Anusha, that's the difference between FII and FDI. 100%, 74% is FDI. Up to 24% is in FII. No, the Chinese Ant Group is not holding 25% alone in Paytm, Shubham. It is holding it via subsidiaries. No, Blue Bond is not an exception. Yes, political instability can be internal shocks. Yes, the depreciation of Chinese currency did help them in becoming a major exporter. Pritha, I was answering your question. All right, coming back to this. Now see, what is the benefit here? FERA restricted inflow of investment in India, because if you tell people you can't hold more than 40%, then people won't come to hold any money. The point was that everybody went away. In fact, IBM, Coca-Cola, all these companies went away out from India when this kind of a rule was brought in. Then second is, and this allowed more investment flow. All right, so if by chance it comes to your mind, what is the benefit? More investment inflow. Second thing, FERA did not allow external commercial borrowing. FEMA allows external commercial borrowing. That is the second difference between the two. FERA doesn't allow external commercial borrowings. FEMA would allow external commercial borrowings. Again, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of external commercial borrowings? Promotes cheaper borrowing for Indian firms. बाहर borrow करते हैं तो interest rate कम हो जाता है Indian firms के लिए. So promotes cheaper borrowing for Indian firms. Reduces hedging cost. Hedging cost is protection cost. Reduces hedging cost for foreign payment. मान लो मैं बाहर कोई कंपनी टेक ओवर कर रहा हूँ या बाहर कोई चीज़ें खरीद रहा हूँ, तो रूपी को डॉलर में कन्वर्ट करूँ, हेज करूँ, फिर खरीदूँ, इससे अच्छा वहीं बोरो करूँ, डॉलर मिले उसे ही यूज़ कर लूँ. So my hedging cost gets reduced for foreign payment. I don't have to convert rupee into dollar here. I will take dollar, make my payments over there itself. So the domestic firms get benefited as external commercial borrowings get permitted. Then third was, under FERA, exporters had to repatriate their earnings within 3 weeks. Extended to 3 months after 1985. This was a rule under FERA that exporters had to repatriate their earnings within 3 weeks to India. Now 3 weeks was too less. People didn't even pay within 3 weeks. And this was made a draconian act. If the exporters didn't get the money back, they could be arrested also. It was a criminal offense. तो बहुत बार exporter loan लेकर पैसा लाते थे वापस. But majority case में क्या करते थे? They would do under invoicing. They would not show the true extent of money. That is one thing they would do. Sometimes they would send their money without showing it legally and then bring the money back via Hawala channel. So all those wrong practices started because exporters were expected to bring back their earnings within 3 weeks, later on 3 months. Under FEMA, exporters are given up to 9 months for repatriation. Exporters are given up to 9 months for repatriation. All right. Another thing that is done under FERA, I have already told you about it. Under FERA, individuals were not allowed to send more than $500 abroad in 1 year. Later on extended to $1,500. तो एक तरह से सरकार कह रही थी कि अगर आप बाहर जा रहे हो तो जाओ एयरपोर्ट देख के चले आओ, क्योंकि उतने पैसे में तो यही होता। लोग फिर वही हवाला का यूज करते थे। They would secretly send the money abroad, then take it from there and go get through things going. So और फिर उसमें तरह तरह के रूल थे। लेकिन अगर आपको इस काम के लिए पैसा चाहिए तो मिल जाएगा, उस काम के लिए पैसा चाहिए तो मिल जाएगा। तो लोग तिकड़म लगाते थे कि कैसे मैं प्रूफ करूं कि मैं उसी काम के लिए जा रहा हूं। जैसे अगर आप हेल्थ के लिए जा रहे हो तो आपको ज्यादा पैसे अलाउड हैं, अगर आप एजुकेशन के लिए जा रहे हो तो ज्यादा पैसे अलाउड हैं। ये अननेसेसरी ट्राइंग टू मैनेज पार्ट था। You know that this is unnecessary management of people. That people will then show deliberately. So you write under FERA, you write individual accounts could not send more than $500, and it was later extended to $1,500 abroad in 1 financial year. Under FEMA, you have already written it is $250,000. Under FERA, I'm dictating it. Under FERA, individual accounts could not send more than $500, and in a bracket you can write later $1,500 abroad in 1 financial year. And under FEMA, up to $250,000 is allowed. Now, you know, yesterday I was teaching you MRTP and Competition Act. Today I am teaching you FERA-FEMA. There is a common link between such laws. The laws before 91, like MRTP, like FERA, were assuming that people have corrupt motive, they have malafide intentions, let's not allow them to do business, or restrict as much as possible. The laws post 91 were made with the belief that they are our people, they have bona fide intention, they are here to work well, allow them to do business. It's a big difference in attitude of the government. That one is, I trust you, you do business, if you do something wrong, we'll penalize you. Another is, I don't trust you, and we won't allow you to do business. So MRTP, FERA, they were all product of that thinking. अभी भी देखना वो thinking कभी कभी दिमाग में रहती है, अगर अलाउ किया, चोरी किए तो वही thinking है वो, कि मैं मान के ही चलूंगा कि मेरे सिटीजन जो हैं वो चोर होंगे। अगर चोरी किए तो उसका कानून बनना चाहिए ना, मैं काम ही नहीं करने दूंगा क्योंकि तुम चोरी कर लोगे। ऐसा कानून तो बड़ा खतरनाक होगा। I'll quote a line to you, might have quoted earlier also, because I'm a big fan. Professor Srinivasan, he's no more now, but I would practically seek out his writings and read them. So you know, Professor Srinivasan wrote something very well about India in 1980s and 70s. He said, ideally, the healthcare policies should be preventive, कि मैं होने नहीं दूंगा बीमारी, and economic policies should be curative. अगर बीमारी हो गई तो क्योर करेंगे। He said in India, it has been the opposite. You know, the healthcare policies are curative, तुम पहले बीमार पड़ जाओ, फिर तुम्हारा इलाज कर देंगे। And economic policies are preventive. मैं काम ही नहीं करने दूंगा, तुम चोरी कैसे करोगे? और मजे की बात यह है कि लोग फिर भी कर लेते हैं। तो ये कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग बातें हैं हमारे लिए, that you know, forcing people not to work doesn't mean, or restricting people doesn't mean you can control things from happening. So reforms were doing these. Now these are some of the liberalization reforms. जब भी तुम liberalization के बारे में लिखोगे, दो बातें और लिखोगे, आप इसके नीचे बस वो points लिख के रख लो. This is the third liberalization. First was industrial liberalization, second external sector liberalization, third is fiscal liberalization. जो एक्सपोर्टर्स पैसा कमाते हैं बाहर, उन्हें अपना पैसा 3 हफ्ते के अंदर देश में लाना था। ठीक है, अब ये प्रोहिबिटिव हो गया था, कैसे लाएंगे, मतलब 3 हफ्ते तक तो पैसे इंपोर्टर ही नहीं दे रहा है आपको, तो लाएंगे कहाँ से? तो फेमा में लॉ बना कि आप 9 महीने तक बाहर रख सकते हो पैसा. ऑल राइट, fiscal liberalization, and again I repeat, in fiscal liberalization you will write all the reforms on taxation like faceless transactions, ease of filing the tax, reduction in tax rate, all these reforms in taxation that I made you write in fiscal policy, you can bring it up here. That is fiscal liberalization. Do I believe it can be done? That every reform in the fiscal policy part, where we talked about faceless taxation, we talked about assessment being made faceless, we also talked about ease of filing taxes, and the economic survey talks that I was doing with you. Along with that, of course, reduction in corporate tax rate, reduction in income tax rate, new rate of taxation introduced from this year, all that is liberalization of taxation in India, fiscal liberalization. Shifting to direct benefit transfer is another fiscal liberalization, that you are shifted to direct benefit transfer. And another one you write, fourth, monetary liberalization. All the banking reforms that you wrote, liberalizing interest rate, if you would recall, RBI allowed interest rate to be deregulated from 1997, more private banks allowed in India, all these reforms that we talked, banking reforms, allowing private banks, foreign banks in India, also allowing banks to set up digital banking units. These are all liberalizing banking sector in India. Digital banking units, establishing banks like payment banks, small finance banks. This is all fiscal monetary policy liberalization. Ways and means advances, replacing ad hoc treasury bill is a monetary policy liberalization. तो जितने भी रिफॉर्म मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी में पड़े वो आएगा मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी लिबरलाइजेशन, और जो भी रिफॉर्म फिस्कल पॉलिसी में पड़े वो आ गया फिस्कल लिबरलाइजेशन. So by chance they ask you to write a 20-mark question on policy of liberalization in India, you will take it under industrial liberalization, fiscal liberalization, monetary liberalization, external sector liberalization. अगर कभी तुम्हें लिखने को बोलते हैं policies of globalization implemented by India, all these external sector liberalization policies are also policies of globalization implemented by India. You understand that? Apart from that, India allowing foreign firms to pay lesser tax to pay taxes in India, or India allowing foreign banks to invest in India. These are all policies of globalization practiced by India. समझाना ये चाह रहा हूँ कि knowledge base रहेगा तुम्हारे पास, तुम्हें pick करना होगा चारों तरफ से to write an answer. That okay, this is what I learned here, this is what I learned here, and I can add all that in my points when I'm writing an answer. All right, you give a heading now. You write public sector in India. Public sector in India. This is of course after 1991. Public sector in India. I have already defined public sector to you when I was talking to you India before 1991, that all institutions owned by the government is public sector. So we have already defined that, and I hope you would recall there will be central public sector undertaking, central public sector enterprises, state public sector undertaking, and state public sector enterprises. These were talks I did with you when I was discussing India before 91. Now we talk about what is the role of public sector in today's India, and what are the reforms needed in public sector, and how much reforms have been done, what more will be required. All right, that is the idea. So you give a heading there, role of public sector in India after 1991. Role of public sector in India after 1991. अब इसकी शुरुआत कहाँ से करोगे मैं बताता हूँ. जो कल मैं तुम्हें लिखवा रहा था about policy of liberalization in public sector. You recall that we reduced the reserve category firm for industry for public sector from 17 to 8 and all that stuff. So whatever you wrote yesterday in liberalization on public sector is the beginning point of your role of public sector in reforms. All right, that is where you will begin talking everything till today when the government has now said that apart from 4 sectors, all other industries will be outside public sector's purview. कल ये बात कर रहे थे हम लोग कि 4 इंडस्ट्रीज को छोड़कर, 4 सेक्टर्स को छोड़कर बाकी सभी पब्लिक सेक्टर के परव्यू से बाहर रहेंगे. वहां तक की बात पहले लिखोगे. जब भी कोई सवाल आता है, व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर इन इंडिया आफ्टर 1991, you will first start talking on whatever we did yesterday. All right, that is what you will start talking. After that, you write public sector maintains its relevance in India. Public sector maintains its relevance in India, maintains its relevance in India because it is not only required, for production of goods and services, but it is also required for social sector activities like redistribution of wealth, provisioning of essential services, like drinking water, electrification, credit distribution, promotion of production for strategic and defense related purpose, developing basic infrastructure, like rural road, rural electrification, sanitation facilities, and food distribution. I always sneeze in twins, I don't know. All right. In the same thing you write, it is also needed for promoting education, healthcare, and and skill development, skill development to upgrade income earning opportunities, to upgrade income earning opportunities. Full stop. It helps in implementing PDS, PDS is public distribution system, PDS, comma, priority sector lending, priority sector lending, comma, BharatNet, comma, housing development projects, like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, comma, social development projects, social development projects like Jal Jeevan Mission, etc. Change the paragraph. However, public sector मैं सच बोल रहा हूँ तुम्हें अभी सोच रहा था बोतल नहीं गिरा अभी तक तब तक टन however public sector is not required for non-core, non-strategic investments, full stop. These include investment in non-essential consumer goods like scooter manufacturing. So non-essential consumer goods, investment in non-essential consumer goods, comma, investment in commercial financial institutions, commercial financial institution, comma, expenditure on small capital goods. Small capital goods are things like making motor pumps or nuts and bolts. These are small capital goods. All right, so expenditure on small capital goods, etc., where public money can be used, मैं छोड़ ही देता हूँ। तुम में से किसी का प्राण निकले इसके, और जाते जाते मेरी तरफ उंगली करते इसी की वजह से लाइन पूरा करवा देता हूं, तब तक खुद को बचा लेना। कैन बी यूज्ड फॉर developmental activities, can be used for developmental activities by releasing resources for them. By releasing resources for them. You just give a heading. हेडिंग दिलवा रहा हूं, लिख, कल ही डिस्कस करेंगे. द हेडिंग इज रीजंस फॉर पुअर परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर इन इंडिया. रीजंस फॉर पुअर परफॉर्मेंस of public sector in India. We'll start it here tomorrow. I have a request, if one of you could do that. I'm sure many of you can do that. I'll be, normally after your class I'm on the first floor because I've called people up there. So 2:45, if one of you can please come and tell me that, come over. संदीप सर वैसे आ जाते हैं, लेकिन संदीप सर के बाद भी लोग हिल नहीं रहे होते, तो आप अगर आ जाएंगे, कोई एक दो लोग आके मुझे बस रिमाइंडर दे दीजिए 2:45 बजे कि सर आपकी क्लास है, मैं आपके साथ ही नीचे आ जाऊंगा. राइट, आई विल डू दैट. ओके, आना ही नहीं है. थैंक यू, आई विल सी यू देन टुमारो. Repatriation is done by sending money through banking channels, Nikita. No, it was not jumped from 40 to 100, Akanksha. It was done over a period. Repatriation means sending the money back, and hedging cost is paying fee to protect against fluctuations. Commercial financial institutions will be banks, non-banking financial companies, etc. Lydia. जिसमें सारे ही, तुम जितना सेक्टर है ना कंज्यूमर गुड्स के, कार, ऑटोमोबाइल, इसमें ऑटोमेटिक रूट है, या एविए तुम्हारा कंज्यूमर गुड्स लाइक मिल्क प्रोडक्शन, ऑटोमेटिक रूट है. नहीं, ऑटोमेटिक रूट जैसे डिफेंस में नहीं है, रेलवेज में नहीं है. हाँ, 74%, 49%, दैट इज द अमाउंट, प्रपोर्शन. हाँ, वो डिसाइड होता है कि इससे ज्यादा होल्ड नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है, थैंक यू विकास. I understand, Komal. P&G is privatization and globalization. I will be teaching you that, Lydia. Privatization I have already started with public sector, and globalization after that. In case of China, it was called dim sum bonds. Rashmi, I'm answering your question. Schumpeter and Caldor, both, Nikhil. Thank you, Ashu. Yes. वो पी नोट्स इशू कर सकते हैं, लेकिन वो फॉरेन फाइनेंशियल फर्म होने चाहिए और सेबी के साथ रजिस्टर होने चाहिए. ठीक है, किसके लिए? फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट के लिए. कोई भी इंडियन एमबीए की जो सेकेंड सेमेस्टर की बुक आती है ना फाइनेंस की, उठा के पढ़ लो, आराम से चल जाएगा काम. ठीक है. हाँ हाँ, लेकिन जरूरत नहीं उन चीजों में जाने का. मैं 1 सेकंड लूंगा बस. All right, people online, I'll see you tomorrow 2:50 then. Thank you.